Welcome to the deep dive. Here we unpack the most groundbreaking ideas, the latest science, and really explore those profound questions that shape our human experience.
And today we're diving into something really transformative, I think, a perspective that could fundamentally shift how you understand one of the most, well, widespread and often isolating experiences.
Depression.
Exactly. Imagine if that profound feeling we label as depression, that gnawing internal pain, that sense of being disconnected or lost, isn't always what we've been told it is.
Right. What if instead of just being a medical condition to be, pathologized and treated, it's actually, well, an innate fundamental hunger, a deep yearning for spiritual awakening?
A hunger, that phrase just, it resonates so deeply. It's like a hunger as basic, as essential as our need for food or water.
Yes. A powerful, almost primal scream from your very being, your body, mind, soul, calling for an expanded awareness. Gently, maybe, but persistently nudging you onto a profound inner quest.
And the source guiding our deep dive into this, well, pretty radical idea is none other than Dr. Lisa Miller. Ah, Dr. Miller. She is truly a trailblazer in her field, a leading expert in health and spirituality, a practicing clinical psychologist, and the brilliant mind who founded the Spirituality Mind-Body Institute at Teachers College, Columbia University.
And her work isn't just, philosophical musings. It's grounded in rigorous empirical data.
Absolutely. She was, in fact, the first scientist to publish a peer-reviewed article on spirituality and mental health, specifically within the first 2 decades of human life. It's huge.
And crucial for our discussion today, her groundbreaking research uses advanced MRI studies to explore and actually demonstrate these very concepts we're about to unpack.
Right, seeing it in the brain.
And she has this quote that, honestly, for me, it was a total paradigm shift. It just stopped me in my tracks, forced me to reconsider everything I thought I knew.
Which quote is that?
She challenges us directly, asking, what if the condition we pathologize and diagnose as depression is sometimes actually spiritual hunger? Okay, that's big already, but then a normal and genetically derived part of human development that is unhealthy to muffle or deny.
Wow. Unhealthy to muffle or deny. That last part, that's where the power lies, isn't it?
Exactly. It suggests we've been suppressing something essential, something vital to our development.
It absolutely reframes the entire conversation around depression. It invites you to see this widespread human experience not simply as a problem to be fixed or, a deficiency to be medicated away.
But as a potential catalyst, a catalyst for a profound inner growth and transformation.
Yes, a call to attention, not necessarily a pathology in every single case.
So our mission in this deep dive is incredibly clear, and I think it's deeply relevant to everyone listening right now. We're going to explore this powerful, radical idea that spiritual awareness isn't some abstract, vague concept, not just for mystics or, religious scholars.
No, it's an innate human capacity, something that is demonstrably traceable in our very genes, woven right into our biological fabric.
We'll unpack precisely how this innate capacity is cultivated, how it's strengthened through accessible, everyday practices, things like prayer, meditation, acts of service, simple things, really.
Yeah, and most importantly, we'll explore what all of this means for your own life, how it might illuminate your own experiences of pain or struggle, and how it can unlock your potential for profound peace, deep purpose, and a truly buoyant existence.
Yeah, buoyant. I like that word. Let's truly dive deep into this.
Right.
Redefining depression, a call to awaken. Okay, so when we typically talk about depression, the first image that usually comes to mind for many of us is just sadness, right? Feeling down or blue.
Right. That's the common understanding.
But Dr. Miller really pushes us to understand that its true nature is far more expansive, more nuanced than just that one emotion.
That's a crucial distinction, yeah. Her definition of depression goes way beyond mere sadness. It can show up in a whole myriad of ways, like an underlying edginess, maybe a constant grumpiness.
Irritability, even hostility sometimes.
Exactly. Or that creeping sense of dread, a pervasive anxiety that just feels like a constant companion you can't shake.
Or even physical stuff, right? Loss of appetite.
Yeah, or wanting to stay in bed all day. A general powering down of one's inner being, like an internal shutdown where the world just feels too loud, too much. It's a really multifaceted experience, not just the blues.
And when you look at the statistics on depression in modern society, wow, the numbers are truly staggering, almost paradoxical, aren't they?
They really are. Dr. Miller points out that, quite astonishingly, half the United States and half of most of the post-industrial world is depressed.
Half. Despite having unprecedented food supplies, incredible material wealth, the best medical care in history.
It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? This profound inner hurt persists. It even seems to be escalating, despite all our immense external abundance. What does that actually tell us?
That something fundamental is missing. Or at least we're misidentifying something crucial.
I think so. For most of the 20th century, the prevailing view in mental health, especially within psychology and psychiatry, was that depression was almost solely a medical illness.
Right, the chemical imbalance theory was huge.
Exactly. Seen as having clear biological correlates in the brain. And in that model, spirituality or religion, well, if they were acknowledged at all, they were often dismissed, just band-aids or crutches.
Something people turn to out of weakness, not something intrinsically valuable or scientifically verifiable for mental health.
Precisely. And Dr. Miller emphasizes that this perspective, while dominant for so long, is now considered an outdated point of view by contemporary science.
Okay, so if that 20th century view is outdated, what's the pivotal shift? What's science revealing now about depression and our inner lives? What's the emerging truth?
Well, the pivotal shift, and it's a profound one, is this. Just as depression has observable neural correlates, meaning we can see biological changes, patterns in the brain associated with it,
Huh?
so too does our spiritual awareness.
Ah, so spirituality also has brain correlates.
Exactly. Breakthroughs in neuroscience, specifically using advanced MRI technology, now give us the scientific capability to track the very brain circuits that underpin a transcendent relationship.
That's revolutionary. And it holds true regardless of specific religion, or even if someone's just spiritual but not religious, or not religious at all.
Yes, that's the amazing part. It's about a universal human capacity.
So it doesn't matter if you identify as Hindu, Catholic, Christian, Muslim, Jewish, or, just feel deeply spiritual without a specific label. The same fundamental circuits engage.
Precisely. Dr. Miller talks about what she called one awakened brain shared by all 7.2 billion people on Earth. The very same neural circuits activate when you perceive a deep, sacred, transcendent relationship, whether you call that God, the universe, source, whatever.
Or even just feeling connected in nature.
Absolutely. These circuits light up when you feel a sense of oneness with life, or when you find that profound solace and sanctuary in the vastness of nature. It's not about a specific dogma. It's about an inherent, wired capacity for spiritual experience.
A universal architecture.
Yeah. Suggesting a profound underlying unity in human spiritual experience.
Okay, that is a truly foundational insight. And this leads directly to her really revolutionary assertion about depression itself, doesn't it? If our brains are wired for this connection, what happens when that wiring isn't activated?
Exactly. That's the core of it. She states very boldly that 2/3 of the time, depression is not a medical illness.
2/3. That's huge.
It is. Instead, she argues it's often a hunger for spiritual awakening. It's your soul, your deepest self, essentially screaming for an expanded awareness because, as she puts it so vividly, life as I'm living it, life as I'm seeing it, has gotten too small.
Too small. And that hunger shows up as those big existential questions.
Often, yes. Why is this happening to me? Why did she leave me? Why did I lose my job, my money? These aren't just questions about circumstance. They're questions of meaning, of purpose. An internal signal that your current way of seeing life just isn't big enough anymore.
And she describes this, especially in younger people, more like a developmental catalyst than a pathology.
Indeed. What she calls developmental depression is incredibly prevalent in young adults, again, accounting for maybe 2/3 of the cases she sees. And crucially, it's not pathological in her view.
It's more like a wake-up call.
Yeah, described as a banging at the door, an insistent calling from within. It's an invitation, really, an imperative to wake up and rise to the next mantle of your being.
Not about external achievements, but inner transformation.
Exactly. A spiritual evolution that's a normal, albeit often painful, part of growing up, of maturing. It's the soul saying, hey, there's more for you here.
I love that Jim Carrey analogy she brought up where he describes depression as deep rest.
Oh, yeah, that's powerful.
It's like your body and soul just needing a profound break, a reset from playing a character that doesn't really serve your spiritual abilities or your authentic self anymore.
It's a deeply insightful metaphor, isn't it?
Yes.
It suggests this deep rest encourages a shedding of masks, releasing the pressure of societal comparisons, letting go of roles that just don't fit who you're becoming.
So it's an invitation to move through and after depression, not just solve it like a math problem.
Right. To experience it as a kind of cleansing process. This journey allows for deep replenishment, renewal. It's not something to be strategized away with what she calls the achieving brain, that part of us focused on goals, external metrics.
Mm.
Instead, this kind of depression, this developmental kind, is meant to be experienced and perceived through the awakened brain, allowing for a deeper connection to your true self and, well, the universe.
Right.
It's really about being, not just doing, in those moments.
The science of the soul. Neurocorrelates of spiritual awareness. Okay, let's dive deeper into the science here. If there's an awakened brain that can experience this transcendent connection, what exactly are those MRI studies showing us? Can science actually show what's happening when someone feels, spiritually connected?
Yeah, this is where the empirical data really brings this whole concept to life. Dr. Miller's research, using fMRI scans, identifies three core pillars, or specific neural circuits, that are consistently active in what she calls the awakened brain.
Okay, three pillars. What's the first one?
The first is what she calls the bonding network. This circuit allows our brains to literally perceive being loved and held in a transcendent sense.
Loved and held, like how?
Think about it like this. Picture a child feeling utterly safe and loved, cradled securely in a parent's arms. That feeling.
Yeah, absolutely.
The bonding network in the brain engages similarly when we experience and receive what someone might call God's love, or the universe's unconditional love, or just the profound embrace of existence itself.
So it's not just a belief, it's a detectable brain response.
It's a real, detectable neurological response. And when this network engages, it triggers a powerful cascade of physiological benefits. It leads to profound feelings of peace, significantly reduced stress responses.
Lower cortisol, maybe.
Exactly. Lower cortisol, the main stress hormone, and healthier, more balanced physiological patterns through the body.
Yeah.
It's like your entire biology just exhales, signaling, I am safe, I am seen, I am loved.
Wow. So it's biologically observable and has real health benefits. That's incredible. Okay, what's the second pillar?
The second pillar involves the ventral attention network. This is fundamentally linked to guidance and intuition.
Guidance and intuition. How does that work with attention?
Well, we typically operate with two forms of attention. There's the narrow, focused, almost bowling alley attention we use for achieving goals, like intensely planning a complex task, or strategizing, or following a recipe meticulously. That's our doing brain.
Right, tunnel vision sometimes.
Kind of. But then there's the floodlights of ventral attention. When this network activates, your awareness expands. The world around you becomes bigger, brighter, and you become receptive to receiving what she calls divine guidance, or, new directions, insights, inspirations from the universe.
So it's not necessarily a voice from above.
Not necessarily. It could be a sudden, unexpected solution popping into your head when you're relaxed, or a strong intuitive pull towards a certain path, even without clear logical reasons. Dr. Miller asserts we are literally built to receive divine guidance and to perceive direction beyond our conscious analytical mind.
That's a powerful distinction, shifting from that narrow focus to a broad, receptive awareness. Like our brain can download information from a wider field. Okay, and the third pillar?
The third pillar involves the parietal region, which relates to our perception of oneness.
Oneness, like interconnectedness.
Exactly. Our brain is exquisitely designed to perceive both separateness and unity. On one hand, it helps us put in and out hard boundaries, so we recognize ourselves as individuals distinct from others. I am me, you are you. That's crucial for navigating the physical world.
Sure.
But the parietal region also enables the opposite experience, our intrinsic connection to a greater whole. It allows us to experience being part of one family of life, a unity of consciousness.
Like looking at the stars and feeling part of something huge.
Precisely. Or that overwhelming connection you might feel with a newborn baby. This capacity is what ensures, deep down, that we're never alone. It's the neurological basis for experiencing interconnectedness.
Okay, so if I'm getting this right, these three circuits, feeling loved and held, being open to guidance, and knowing we're never alone, they don't operate in isolation, do they?
No, absolutely not. They activate and run together in the awakened brain. They're intricately interconnected, mutually reinforcing, creating this holistic, deeply integrated experience of spiritual awareness.
Wow. And what's truly sobering, maybe, but also motivating, is understanding the consequence of not engaging these practices, of letting these capacities lie dormant.
Yes, the absence of these practices, neglecting these inherent spiritual circuits,
Yeah.
it leads directly to that excruciating pain of feeling unloved, feeling lost, and perhaps most acutely feeling painfully lonely.
That deep disconnection.
Right, and that deep pervasive pain, Dr. Miller argues, is itself a big bang at the door. It's not a punishment. It's an urgent, undeniable invitation to start practicing awakening, to begin using your awakened brain,
Right.
and to reclaim these innate capacities for connection.
It's a signal, a powerful message from inside. And this perspective also sheds light on her views about conventional medication for depression, doesn't it?
Absolutely. While medication can be incredibly helpful, even life-saving for immediate pain relief, getting someone back on their feet.
Sure, it has its place.
Definitely. But it often doesn't address the underlying spiritual hunger. Dr. Miller emphasizes that if the pain often returns when medication is stopped, it might be because the deeper spiritual capacity, what she vividly calls that donut-sized hole within the individual, hasn't been engaged.
The hole hasn't been filled.
Exactly. The neuro foundation for a relationship with God or with a transcendent, and that inborn imperative to be in relationship with our higher power, remain unused. They're inherent gifts we have, but often neglect to cultivate. Medication manages symptoms, but it can't fill that fundamental spiritual void. 3. The personal path to awakening. Dr. Miller's journey.
That really brings us to how someone even begins to tap into this. And Dr. Miller herself had a deeply personal journey into this understanding, didn't she? It started for her quite young, age 19, with what sounds like a profound existential crisis.
It did. Yeah, she recounts her first significant downward spiral at 19, triggered by what seems like an ordinary event, but for her, it was a devastating breakup.
Yeah.
She describes being flat in love for 5 months, this whirlwind connection, and then just being utterly devastated when it ended.
But it wasn't just typical heartbreak.
No, it went much deeper. This experience launched her into a series of profound, almost philosophical questions about the nature of existence itself. She started asking things like, is love not real? Is love impermanent? What's the point of all this if everything I cherish can just disappear?
Wow. Deep questions for 19.
Really deep. She describes experiencing this shocking, drowning sense of impermanence where the ground beneath her feet just seemed to vanish, and this launched her into an intense search for ultimate truth, for meaning.
And this struggle wasn't just emotional, it manifested physically, too. Sleeplessness, anxiety.
Yeah, sleeplessness, pervasive anxiety, and a feeling she recognized as depression, which led her, naturally, to seek help from therapists.
Right. The logical step.
Yes, she did what many of us would do, sought conventional psychotherapy. But what she found was that it was profoundly unhelpful for her specific, unique struggle at that time.
How so? What were they missing?
Well, the therapists she saw, operating within the dominant psychological frameworks of the time, tried to fit her spiritual and existential questions into their traditional boxes. They'd ask things like, was your father there for you? Or diagnose her with low self-esteem.
Trying to apply standard models.
Exactly. Applying known psychological solutions to a problem that felt, to her, entirely different in its origin and nature.
Which, as you said, she instinctively felt just completely missed the mark. Her gut told her this wasn't about her childhood or self-worth in that way.
Precisely. Her gut instinct told her these approaches weren't touching the core of her struggle. Her internal experience wasn't about trauma or lack of self-worth in the conventional sense. It was a hunt for what's true, a deeper, more fundamental existential quest about the meaning of love, life, permanence.
And psychology hadn't quite caught up then.
Not really. At the time she experienced this, psychology hadn't yet fully understood or formalized the concept of emerging adulthood. That's now a recognized developmental stage, late teens, 20s, where young people often grapple with these huge questions of identity, purpose, meaning, seeking something deeper. She was kind of ahead of her time in her experience.
So for her, that broken heart and those profound, almost cosmic questions about love and God, they became what she calls the portal.
That's her core resonant message. Right where the pain is the portal. Her initial heartbreak and those ensuing existential questions became the entry point, the unexpected doorway for her spiritual quest.
And she emphasizes these questions aren't just for young people.
No, absolutely not. They recur, sometimes with startling intensity at midlife and again in elder years. She calls these 3 bridges of spiritual emergence we encounter throughout life. They're inevitable, she argues. Fundamentally, they can't be avoided because spirituality is, as she says, inborn, an inherent part of our human blueprint that demands exploration.
That really resonates with that common tendency when we feel inner discomfort or stuckness to look outward for solutions, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. We think, my spouse isn't right, or my job isn't big enough, or I just need more money, especially in our culture, which is so relentlessly obsessed with outward measurement, what we can see, acquire, achieve.
We're conditioned to think the answer's out there.
Exactly. A new relationship, a different job, more stuff, change the circumstances.
Hmm.
But Dr. Miller argues that, more often than not, the answer's found in a deep seat of being inside ourselves, connecting to our inner wisdom, to the transcendent.
And her first awakening from that breakup at 19, how long did that shift take?
She said it took about 6 months for that profound shift to occur,
Mm.
which, felt like an eternity for a 19-year-old.
Sure.
But it highlights the relatively rapid and profound transformation that can happen when you truly turn inward and address that inner call. The pain isn't the enemy. It's a compassionate, maybe forceful, but compassionate, calling to wake up and step into a larger reality.
For me, cultivating connection, practices and pathways. Okay, so we've talked about what spiritual awakening is and why it's so incredibly important, this fundamental human hunger. But the natural next question for anyone listening is, okay, how? How do I actually cultivate this? What are the actionable things I can do?
Right. What are the practices I can integrate into my life to begin this journey, or maybe deepen it if I'm already on it?
Exactly.
And that's the really empowering part of this understanding. The pathways are remarkably accessible. They're available to everyone. Dr. Miller suggests a whole range of practices.
Like what sort of things?
Well, engaging in quiet reflection through meditation, for instance. Connecting with a higher power through prayer, whatever that looks like for you. Spending time walking and just observing in nature. Actively joining a service group. Or finding fellowship and community with like-minded people.
It sounds like there are many doors.
Many doors.
Hmm.
And she powerfully reiterates the truth. You are built to awaken. And crucially, as we've discussed, the pain itself is often the very first step, the alarm bell, the invitation, the force that kind of propels you onto this path.
It's like the universe saying, hey, pay attention, something deeper is calling you. And she talks about the profound impact of deep service or altruism in this awakening process.
Yes, that's a big one. She highlights that when you actively step outside yourself to help others, whether it's through organized charity or just simple acts of kindness, you gain this profound realization that we're not alone.
It breaks down that illusion of isolation.
Completely. Simple, concrete acts, like, shoveling a neighbor's driveway after it snows, or babysitting for an overwhelmed young couple so they can just have a moment's peace, or volunteering at a local food bank. These can lead to the immediate, visceral insight that the world isn't fractured and lonely.
It brings that interconnectedness into your being.
Exactly. And this extends to what she calls radical love, or civic love. A conscious choice to extend compassion and connection even beyond superficial differences, like political divides. Seeing the shared humanity underneath it all, it's an active practice of recognizing the sacred in everyone.
That's incredibly powerful, especially today. And what role does our environment play in cultivating this innate spiritual capacity? Is it purely individual practice, or is there something larger at play?
That's a really crucial insight from her work. She explains that while our spiritual awareness is indeed one-third innate, meaning, yes, we're born with this capacity, it's part of our genetic blueprint.
Okay, 1/3 innate.
It is 2/3 environmentally formed.
2/3? Wow, that's huge.
It is. This highlights the immense influence of our early environment. The profound impact of parents, grandparents, faith communities in those first 2 decades of life. They literally weigh in to shape our natural spiritual awareness.
It's not just what they tell us, but what they model.
Precisely. A parent showing compassion, a grandparent sharing stories of resilience and faith, a community emphasizing service. These aren't just teaching beliefs. They're actively shaping the neural pathways in a child's developing brain, forming the very foundation for that innate spiritual awareness to flourish.
But then as we get older,
As we age, we pick our environment. We consciously choose whether to meditate, to pray, to spend time in nature, to connect with a higher power or a spiritual community. This conscious choice, she asserts, is profoundly therapeutic and liberating. It is the way out of addiction, the way out of trauma. It's about taking ownership, self-authorship of our spiritual journey.
so it's not just passive, it's something you actively participate in, shaping throughout life. And she talks about a spiritual ice age in her book, The Spiritual Child. What was that period? What were the consequences?
Yeah, in The Spiritual Child, Dr. Miller details the negative impact of what she calls a 40-year ice age in society. Basically, from the 1960s onward, there was this widespread trend to largely remove discussions of spiritual and religious life from the public square, particularly from institutions like schools, even clinical psychology.
And the intention was good, right? To be inclusive.
The intentions were often good to be inclusive, avoid imposing beliefs, respect diversity. However, Dr. Miller argues that, ironically, this became radically exclusive. It left everyone left out. By actively avoiding discussions of the spiritual, we inadvertently alienated a fundamental part of the human experience. We left many, especially young people, without a language or a framework for their innate spiritual longings and questions.
So by trying not to offend anyone, we ended up silencing maybe the most fundamental part of human experience.
That's her argument, exactly. She advocates for a new era of pluralism, a paradigm where open, respectful discussion about diverse spiritual paths and transcendent experiences isn't just tolerated, but actively encouraged, instead of avoiding it for fear of offense.
Like kids sharing about Diwali, Ramadan, Hanukkah, Christmas, or just feeling awe in nature without judgment.
Exactly, creating a safe space for people to express their deepest connections and learn from each other's profound spiritual insights. This shift fosters a much richer, more inclusive societal dialogue.
And the statistics she presents in The Spiritual Child are really compelling, almost shockingly so, about youth and the protective power of having a spiritual core.
They are stark and powerful. Her research shows that children and teenagers who have a positive, active relationship to spirituality, whether within a formal religion or a more personal spiritual practice, show remarkably positive outcomes.
Like what?
Well, they're 40% less likely to use and abuse substances. That's a strong buffer.
40%? Wow.
They're 60% less likely to be depressed as teenagers, directly relevant to our topic today.
60% less likely to be depressed.
There's 80% less likely to have dangerous or unprotected sex, suggesting greater self-worth, better decision-making.
80%. Incredible.
And beyond just protection, they also show significantly more positive markers for thriving, increased meaning, greater purpose in life, even better academic success.
And the most important one, maybe the most heartbreaking statistic, especially now, is about suicide prevention.
Absolutely. Crucially, Dr. Miller's research reveals that children with a strong spiritual core are 82% protected against suicide.
82%.
Which is tragically the #1 killer of high school students today. She frames this extraordinary finding as the most important gift we give our children, describes it as a profound antidote that parents already possess, a natural vaccine for the soul, if you will.
That is astonishing. So what's her practical guidance for parents? How do they give this huge gift? What does it look like day to day?
The most important thing, she says, is to strengthen their child's natural spiritual awareness, simply by listening deeply, by being totally in awe of your child.
In awe.
Yeah. She emphasizes that children are literally a spiritual portal, born with a direct connection to all the universe. They often come into the world with this innate sense of wonder, interconnectedness, a direct line to something transcendent. Our role as parents isn't so much to teach them spirituality, but to nurture and protect that pre-existing connection, witnessing and honoring their inherent spiritual wisdom.
Okay, but what about when a child asks those really tough, big spiritual questions, the ones that make even adults uncomfortable, like where do we go when we die, or why did that bad thing happen?
Right. Instead of feeling pressured to give an immediate, definitive answer, which can often feel inadequate or even dismissive to a searching child, she suggests parents teach their children to listen to their own heart, their inner wisdom.
So turn it back to them.
Gently? Yes. You could say something like, that's a beautiful big question, deep in your inner wisdom. What does your heart say to you about that? Or, let's sit together now, quietly, maybe in meditation or prayer, and just see what comes to you as the answer, what guidance you receive.
Empowering them to trust their own inner compass.
Exactly. Fostering a lifelong habit of internal inquiry and connection.
She has that powerful story about her adopted son, Isaiah, right? That really brings this to life.
It's a beautiful story, yeah. She and her husband consciously decided from day one to tell Isaiah that he was baby Moses, that he'd been sent by God to them. This consistent spiritual narrative became a powerful framework for him.
A foundation.
A real foundation. It equipped him, even at age 8, to answer challenging questions from a friend at school about his adoption, about his biological mother. When asked, he instinctively replied that God whispered in her ear, meaning his birth mother, that his adoptive parents were crying for him.
Wow.
It just perfectly demonstrates how a child's awakened brain can not only receive but also perceive and articulate profound spiritual answers when it's nurtured from an early age. It fosters that foundational sense of being loved, guided, and knowing they're never alone, no matter what. Overcoming obstacles, healing spiritual injury and ego.
So it's clear that building the spiritual foundation and helping our kids build theirs is incredibly valuable. But what happens when that foundation feels shaky or even collapses? What about those really painful experiences when figures who are supposed to represent spiritual truth, those torchbearers, fail to live up to their message? That hypocrisy trap can cause such deep spiritual injury, right? Lead to disillusionment.
It is indeed a painful and unfortunately pervasive reality. When those who hold the flame of truth, individuals, institutions embodying God's presence or spiritual light, fail to walk the walk through hypocrisy, abuse, serious transgression, it can be utterly devastating.
Especially for young people.
Especially for children and teenagers who are so exquisitely aware of incongruence, of authenticity, they can feel deeply betrayed. And they might be tempted to just throw out the flame of faith and spiritual connection entirely, mistaking the human failing of the torchbearer for a fundamental flaw in the spiritual message itself.
Leaving a deep wound, a sense that the source of comfort is untrustworthy.
Exactly. It can feel like an insurmountable obstacle leading people away from spirituality for life.
So what's the hope there?
Well, Dr. Miller offers a profound and vital comfort. A spiritual injury can always be healed. Always. That's a crucial message of hope. The reason healing is always possible is because everyone, every single human being, possesses that God-given, inborn, innate capacity to connect to the transcendent relationship. The flame of truth, that direct connection to the divine, it's always there, independent of the human torchbearer who might have stumbled. The path to the light is never truly permanently severed.
Okay, so how does that healing happen then, if that direct connection feels damaged or obscured by betrayal?
There are two primary powerful pathways she describes. One is by meeting a torchbearer who does walk the walk, someone who's embodied love, authentic devotion, integrity, restores faith. Shows that genuine spiritual living is possible.
Like a new mentor, a friend?
Could be a mentor, a compassionate counselor, a coach, a friend, anyone who genuinely lives their spiritual message with consistency and love. They become a bridge back to trust.
In the second pathway.
The second pathway is equally powerful and involves directly inviting a connection to the flame through personal spiritual practices. Consciously, intentionally, consistently engaging in prayer, meditation, service, time in nature, rekindling that innate spiritual capacity from within, regardless of external validation or past hurts.
She mentioned Dr. Gary Weaver's work, didn't she, with boys who had been abused by religious figures and then became abusers themselves. That sounds incredibly challenging but powerful.
It is. Dr. Weaver's work exemplifies this profound healing potential. He engaged these individuals, many deeply traumatized, cynical, seemingly beyond reach, and invited them back to the flame of their innate spiritual capacity. He used a universal spiritual practice in the austere beauty of the Moab desert.
And it worked, even with them.
His work with these boys, and also with really diverse groups like high-powered bankers, military generals, homeless youth, it demonstrates that regardless of your past, your background, the depth of your spiritual injury, this inborn healing capacity for transcendent connection is present in everyone. It can always be reactivated. It's a testament to the resilience of the human spirit.
Wow. Another deeply vulnerable story Dr. Miller shares, which powerfully illustrates awakening through suffering, is her own 5-year struggle with unexplained infertility. She calls it brutal, a source of deep depression for both her and her husband.
This was indeed a defining period for her, yeah. She refers to it as a hailstorm or an unwanted life event, distinguishing it from her earlier developmental depression as a teen. This prolonged period of agonizing struggle she views as an example of post-traumatic spiritual growth, a spiritual response emerging from profound, sustained suffering.
Post-traumatic spiritual growth.
Right. And through this agonizing, seemingly unsolvable experience, she arrived at this pivotal, deeply humbling realization. Depression was the prison house of my ego.
The prison house of her ego. What does she mean by that? How was her ego imprisoning her?
Well, she realized she had, unknowingly, made herself utterly miserable by clinging so fiercely to a narrow view of what a parent was, specifically a biological parent. Her ego was fixated on her idea of how life should unfold.
Her specific outcome.
Exactly. This narrow perspective completely overshadowed the vast reality that millions of beautiful children existed in foster care or were available for adoption globally. And traditional psychotherapy, which often focuses on working with the ego to achieve goals, was unhelpful here because her struggle was, at its core, an ego death.
An ego death.
Yeah, a problem without a material controllable solution, one that couldn't be achieved by sheer willpower or strategy. She was stuck in what she calls the achieving awareness mindset, constantly asking, why am I not getting what I want? Trying to research or strategize her way to pregnancy, metaphorically banging that red door till I knock it down, exhausting herself against a reality that just wouldn't bend to her will.
So it was about wanting to control a biological outcome instead of being open to what life was presenting or inviting her to become. That shift must have been incredibly difficult.
It was. The pivotal liberating shift for her was moving from that ego-driven question, what do I want and how am I going to get it, to a radically open, receptive stance. What is life showing me now? What is life revealing to me now? What is the universe inviting me to learn or embody?
A surrender.
A surrender to a larger wisdom. This profound shift in awareness was her path to liberation from the prison of ego and the depression it fueled.
And then she describes this astonishing trail of synchronicities that seemed to just magically guide her once she made that shift. It almost sounds too incredible to believe.
It does sound that way, but it beautifully illustrates how the universe often responds when we open ourselves up to guidance. It began with a seemingly random call from her mother about a friend who'd adopted a boy from Russia.
Okay, interesting.
Just a coincidence, maybe?
Hmm.
Maybe. But then, shortly after, an unusual man on a bus spontaneously turns to her and says, you seem like just that type of lady that would go all over the world, adopt children, a big happy family.
Whoa, okay, that's getting weird.
Right. These were unusual, unconnected events, but she was now paying attention. Then came a deeply symbolic experience. After a particularly painful, failed IVF cycle, she found a literal dead duck embryo on her doorstep.
Oh, heartbreaking.
A stark, heartbreaking symbol of her own loss and longing. But immediately after, a mama duck appeared and brought her a worm, a small gesture of sustenance, shared life. This was a profound, direct experience for her of being loved, guided, and never alone. The universe reflecting her pain, then offering comfort, continuity.
Wow, and the broken remote in the hotel room, leading to that 4-hour documentary, that seems like the culmination.
That was the ultimate opening, she calls it. She and her husband were in this overpriced hotel, remote's broken. The only channel they could get was playing a 4-hour documentary about an unloved boy living in a garbage dump.
Just random chance.
Seemed like it, maybe even inconvenient. But because they were in this new, receptive state of awareness, they watched. And it profoundly moved them, speaking directly to a deep, resonant need within their hearts. It became the ultimate opening to what they truly needed to understand, where they were being called.
And the outcome was just miraculous, really, a testament to that profound shift.
Indeed. Her heart awakened and soared, she says, when she finally saw the video of her soon-to-be adopted son, Isaiah. In that moment, she realized she was becoming a spiritual parent, called to love a child not of her biology, but of her soul.
A shift in identity.
A huge shift. And then, here's the truly astonishing synchronicity. That very night, after 5 long years of unexplained infertility, multiple grueling IVF attempts, she conceived their daughter, Leah, naturally.
Wow, that same night.
That same night. This incredible turn of events perfectly illustrates the power of releasing that egoic control, surrendering to a larger spiritual path, and allowing the universe to deliver what's truly meant for you, often in ways you can never have anticipated. It wasn't her Amazon shopping list approach to manifestation anymore. It was profound alignment.
She actually calls this the Lewis approach to manifestation after me. So what does this Lewis approach truly entail?
She does. And it's about a deeply humble yet powerful way of moving through life. It means walking with an open spiritual heart, doing our part, of course, taking action where needed, but then looking with great love, respect, and appreciation when someone comes along, when a moment comes along, when a teacher, a lover, a synchronicity comes along that you didn't expect, that you didn't know would be that.
Recognizing those moments.
Yes. Recognizing and acting on what she calls the high pixel hit, those unexpected resonant moments that carry profound information that's yet to unfold for us in the future. It's an active engagement with life's flow, rather than trying to rigidly control it. 6. Guidance and purpose, the role of synchronicities and the road of life.
What's truly fascinating here is how that connects so directly to my own experience. I mean, my relationship with Marta, for example, felt like a series of these weird synchronicities that were just impossible to ignore, almost too improbable to be coincidence.
Like what specifically?
Well, her unique nature post, my spontaneous reply to it, then discovering she was in the same country, even a nearby city, that was strange enough. But then that truly profound moment in the car when she recognized the photo of the boy on my phone as my inner child and revealed she was on the exact same healing journey. It felt like the universe was shouting, you know?
Yeah. That's a perfect, real-world example of what Dr. Miller means by the Lewis approach. An open heart, a willingness to see beyond the obvious, and then acting on the signs that appear.
You consciously decided to make that early dating phase a spiritual phase, didn't you?
I did. Prioritizing spiritual connection alignment over just superficial attraction or societal expectations. I actively looked for that deeper resonance.
Breaking old patterns.
Exactly. It was a conscious choice, almost a discipline, to lean into that spiritual alignment first, to trust those high pixel hits. And that, as the Dalai Lama says, is key. Love is a practice. Love is a choice. Not just a fleeting feeling, requires active cultivation. And this leads directly to how we can cultivate more of these synchronicities in our own lives, right? Dr. Miller explains the more we pay attention to them, the more we perceive them. It's cyclical.
Like strengthening a muscle.
Exactly. A practice of acknowledging, saying, yes, this is real, reflecting on its meaning, and then, crucially, acting on it.
She even managed to improve her own catch rate of synchronicities from, what was it, 1 in 3, to an astonishing 90% over 30 years of consistent practice.
Yeah, that really shows it's not just random luck. It truly is a skill developed through consistent engagement, presence. The universe is abundant and generous in laying these signs in our path, but we have to be tuned in to see them.
So how do we tune in? Her daily practice sounds like a good example.
Her personal daily practice beautifully exemplifies this openness and receptivity. Now, everyone finds their own unique language, their own rituals for connecting, but her morning routine offers a really concrete example.
What does she do?
Regardless of the weather, she goes outdoors, connects with nature. She begins with a simple prayer of gratitude for the new day, for nature itself, for all living beings.
Gratitude first?
Then she blesses her family, naming them individually. After that, she asks to be fully present, to be used as a vessel to serve and love, to see and act as guide in all beings she encounters that day.
Setting an intention.
A clear intention, and she concludes with a blessing for the divine itself. Please bless you, God, unto yourself.
Wow. That truly sets the day as a sacred adventure, doesn't it? Rather than just a list of tasks. And it releases that need for absolute control.
Precisely. It cultivates a sure-footed stance in quest, an active, open inquiry into life. What God do you reveal to me now? What do you ask of me now? How might I love more deeply today? This mindset allows for a life infused with purpose and meaning, not just one meticulously planned and executed. It's like dancing with destiny, rather than trying to choreograph every single step.
And speaking of purpose, she offers another incredibly powerful practice for the listener to discover their innate purpose, one that isn't found by planning alone. She calls it the road of life.
Ah, yes, the road of life. This is a beautiful introspective visualization, and I invite you, the listener, to maybe try it now, just for a moment. Close your eyes, allow yourself to relax. Now, recall a time in your life when you desperately wanted a red door, a specific, clearly defined goal. Maybe a particular job or a relationship you were certain was meant for you.
Got it.
You did everything right. You researched, you strategized, you worked incredibly hard, but no matter what you did, that door remained stubbornly stuck. You just couldn't believe it wouldn't open.
Frustrating.
Very. But because that red door was stuck, because your plan didn't work out, you were forced to make a hairpin turn, an unexpected pivot in your life.
Yeah.
Maybe a path you never intended to take.
Okay, that turn.
And that hairpin turn, surprisingly, led you to an entirely different, unexpected destination. A wide open, sparkling yellow door. This wasn't what you initially wanted, but looking back, it was ultimately better. Maybe a more fulfilling job you hadn't considered, or a soul-aligned mentor who appeared out of nowhere, or a true, authentic community that welcomed you exactly as you are.
The unexpected gift.
Exactly. And then identifying that trail angel along the way.
The trail angel.
Yes. As you reflect on that journey, can you recall a trail angel? Someone who appeared briefly, maybe just for a minute or two, right at that pivotal hairpin turn. Someone who pointed the way or offered a single word of encouragement or a piece of unexpected information that shifted everything.
Ah, okay. I think I can picture someone.
Now, reflect deeply. How were the most important parts of your life truly discovered? Was it exclusively through narrow, linear planning and striving? Or was it, more often, through a deep dialogue with the journey of life, recognized as profound gifts that arrive when you least expected them, precisely when you were open to them?
Mostly gifts, I think.
And then the profound question that ties it all together, bringing it back to the spiritual core of our discussion.
Mm.
As you sit with these reflections, ask yourself, where in your road of life is your higher power? Where is God? This powerful question reinforces the profound idea that we are less makers of our paths and more discoverers of our journey. We're always on a spiritual path, even in moments we perceive as depression, setback, or error. The yellow door that opens when the red door closes is almost always, in hindsight, better than anything we could have imagined for ourselves. It's life's way of revealing a grander plan. 7. Practical wisdom. Exercises for the learner.
Okay, let's turn now to some really practical wisdom, some exercises that you, our listener, can try right now to directly connect with this inner wisdom, to awaken your own inherent spiritual capacity. The hosting council exercise sounds incredibly powerful and direct.
It is, yeah. And Dr. Miller describes it as a way to reclaim our birthright to a deep-lived spiritual relationship. So I invite you, the listener, to try it now if you feel comfortable. You can do this with your eyes closed, just allowing yourself to clear your inner space.
Okay, clearing the space.
Imagine yourself in your own peaceful, sacred inner chamber, whatever that looks like for you. In this chamber, set a table. It can be any size, any material, whatever feels right.
Setting the table.
Now, invite anyone, living or deceased, whom you believe truly have your absolute best interest in mind, to sit at that table with you. Let them gather, feel their presence. This could be loved ones, mentors, historical figures, spiritual teachers, anyone who represents pure, unconditional support for you.
Okay, got my guess.
And then, the first crucial question. Ask them, simply and from your heart, do you love me? Allow yourself to truly feel their response, sense their affirmation.
Asking them, feeling the response.
Now invite your higher self, that part of you that's so much more than your achievements or failures, beyond your current challenges, your true, eternal essence, your authentic self. Invite your higher self to join the table.
Okay, higher self is there.
And then ask your higher self, do you love you?
You feel that response deeply.
Asking, receive. And finally, with everyone gathered, invite your higher power, whatever your word is, however you understand that transcendent source of love and wisdom, God, the universe, source, life itself, invite them to your table, and then ask, do you love me? Feel the presence, receive the response.
Inviting, asking, feeling. Wow.
And then the deepest question for yourself, for guidance. With everyone gathered at your table, your council of unconditional support and wisdom, ask this profound question. What do you need to share with me now? What do you need to show me now? What do I need to know in this moment of my life?
Okay, asking that question.
And then just listen. Allow yourself to receive the wisdom, the insights, the feelings, the images that come. Trust what you receive.
I've done this exercise, and it's truly profound, a powerful experience of direct connection. At my table, I imagine Jesus, my deceased father and grandfather, my living mother, my fiancée, Marta.
Wow, quite a council.
Yeah, and when I asked if they loved me, I just felt this immediate, overwhelming sense of a big, warm hug, a resounding yes from all of them. And my higher self confirmed with absolute clarity, 100% you are loved.
That's beautiful.
But the collective message from God and everyone there was so clear, almost echoing: forgive greater, love deeper, and serve more. Simple, yet so profound.
That's a beautiful and incredibly powerful insight. A perfect example of the wisdom that can emerge. Everyone at that table represents a sacred, transcendent relationship, both embodied in people you know and love, and those unseen spiritual forces guiding you. This council provides direct, accessible spiritual mentorship, allowing you to tap into deep inner power and wisdom that's always available.
And that message about forgiveness, forgiving myself first.
Yes, your message of forgiving yourself, allowing deeper self-love, is particularly crucial, because it's only when we truly forgive ourselves that we can open up to love more deeply. And from that place of authentic self-love, we can then serve others more fully, more genuinely, even amidst the everyday frustrations and challenges.
And ultimately, it really boils down to this, doesn't it? Whether these experiences, these connections, are real in a conventional, tangible sense. If you believe them to be real, they become real for you in their impact, their transformative power.
Absolutely. That belief is the key that unlocks the door. That belief, combined with consistent practice, cultivates an awakened brain and a profoundly better experience of life. The science, through those very real MRI scans, doesn't just show us what's happening. It shows us what's possible with an awakened brain and an awakened heart.
It shows potential.
It reveals how, when these synchronize, they don't just alleviate pain, they lead to abundant, powerful, deeply meaningful lives. It confirms what spiritual traditions have taught for millennia, but now with a scientific lens.
It truly brings us back to that core principle Dr. Miller shared right at the beginning, that foundational truth of our being.
Yes, that we are built in our biology to be in a lived, daily transcendent relationship. Engaging this innate divine gift transforms a life that might otherwise feel unloved, lost, and painfully lonely into one of profound buoyancy, deep purpose, and a truly glorious life. It is our birthright, a capacity just waiting to be discovered and cultivated by each of us. Outro.
So, as we bring this deep dive to a cohesive and hopefully, transformative close, remember that radical shift in perspective we started with. That the profound, often isolating feeling we've labeled depression might, at its very root, be a hunger for spiritual awakening, rather than solely a medical illness to be extinguished.
This has been the central theme we've meticulously explored, that spiritual awareness isn't an elective or some niche interest. It is an innate human capacity, demonstrably traceable in our genes, wired right into our biology from birth.
And it is profoundly cultivated, strengthened through accessible, consistent daily practices, prayer, meditation, acts of service, consciously engaging with life's synchronicities. It's a gift everyone possesses, just waiting to be unwrapped.
We've uncovered how those three powerful circuits of the awakened brain, feeling loved and held, being receptive to divine guidance, and knowing deep down you are never alone, work together to create a buoyant, connected, purposeful life.
We've learned that pain itself can be a portal, not a dead end, an invitation to a deeper path of self-discovery and connection, and that, regardless of how deep the wound, spiritual injuries can always be healed.
And we've seen the transformative power of shifting from that ego-driven wanting, that relentless pursuit of control, to an open, receptive dialogue with life and its synchronicities, embracing the yellow door that opens, which is almost always better than what we could have imagined for ourselves.
We truly hope the stories and exercises shared today, like the powerful hosting council and the reflective road of life visualization, give you tangible, actionable ways to engage your own innate spiritual capacity, to tend to that hunger within.
And to leave you with a final provocative thought, something to maybe ponder and integrate into your own life as you go about your day, Dr. Miller shared what she considers her 3 essential truths. Love your enemy, love your lover, love God.
Wow. Love your enemy. That's the really radical one, isn't it?
It is perhaps the most radical, certainly the most challenging. It doesn't mean condoning harm or agreeing with their actions or beliefs. It means making a conscious choice to forgive, to love them as a soul, a fellow human being who is flawed and searching, just like you.
And that act of radical love.
That profound act, freely chosen, doesn't just liberate them, it most profoundly frees you. From resentment, from the chains of bitterness, from the limiting confines of your own ego, it connects you directly to the ultimate field of love, where she says anything's possible.
So it's not just a feeling.
No, it's a profound chosen love, a daily practice that over time becomes the ultimate path to true freedom, deep connection, and an unshakable sense of peace.
Thank you for diving deep with us today. We'll see you next